Maho Season 2 is looking promising.
But yeah, with the recent announcement of MAAAGIICCCC Precure 2 getting a release date that seemed to be later than what was originally planned, we thought it would be only appropriate to review something that ties in with it. And while it will be a while before we get around to actually covering the series proper, we can always cover fan works, aka dojishi, to highlight them in more unique ways for this channel. And specifically for this channel, we again have a work of TJ Type 1 of the Shin Nankai Daikisen Circle. To recap what we've previously covered, we did an actually rather touching tale of Nodoka overcoming her initial bout of the Byogans through sheer willpower and determination, and beating the crap out of Kamen Rider Kaiza, which objectively will always be the greatest achievement for anyone. And before that, we had the Show Riders versus the Heisei Precure, which was, ironically enough, a superior version of the Kamen Rider Taisen film, in spite of being a comedic parody where the leader of Shocker suddenly became obsessed with making Tomokazu Seki the end-all be-all.
And that conveniently leads into our subject for today, as it just so happens to be another Taisen.
Granted, other than the title and its font, it isn't directly referencing or parodying any of the crossover films, which honestly might be for the best. Instead, it does something rather clever that I think Toei really should apply more often to their movies and crossover series with similar themes. In this case, with MAAAGIICCCC in the literal center of it all, they brought in the magic theme seasons of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, Wizard, and Magi Ranger. Which yes, as we'll go over, there's actually a lot of similar motifs across all three series.
Though, since this is a bit more of a Precure channel, I guess we should give you all a bit more of a synopsis of these two, just to give a primer of what's to come.
Kamen Rider Wizard, while right off the bat clearly having a similar gimmick and motif as MAAAGIICCCC, its actual morals and themes are more in line with Smile and Gold Princess, as it deals with hope and despair, with the title character Haruto Soma constantly many of the show's victims of the weak to prevent them from having their bodies become sacrifices to summon creatures known as phantoms. Yeah, their negative emotions don't just become part of the monster, their whole bodies become vessels, to the point that if the phantom completely takes over, the original soul will just die off, leaving only a demon in their skin.
I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's the greatest season ever, but damn if that's not one of the most metal things ever.
Meanwhile, Magi Ranger had the mother of a family of Sentai get killed off in the first episode.
Why are you even a thing?
Still, when you get past that, it is a little more of a straightforward Sentai, where the heroes fight literal hellspawns called Infertia with their wands that take on the forms of flip phones because mid-2000s. Did you know those still kind of exist in Japan? Personally, it was the first Super Sentai I ever watched as it was airing, and all the way through torrents, and it remains one of my personal favorites, with Kai, aka Magi Red, being one of my favorite Reds of all time.
Hence why Mystic Force is one of my least favorite PRs ever, mostly because this guy's a total plank of wood, but I digress.
Another fun fact is that both of the aforementioned Red leads of these shows were suit acted by the same guy, Seiji Takaiwa, who's known as Mr. Kamen Rider, having played almost all of the Heisei Riders starting from Agito, except for Hibiki, as he chose to play Magi Red that year.
We bring this all up because they will be featured alongside our Maho girls in this little number called the Super Maho Taisen.
Our story opened right into the action with Mirai fighting Kai. The Magician of Flames managed to get the quick upper hand with his spells, though notably the Magi phone was looking a little different than usual.
Now you see, Kai, this is why you gotta look at all of the eBay listings and pictures to make sure you're not buying a bootleg.
Mirai countered in the most precure way possible, until this year, by just throwing a whole food stall at him, which warranted the most appropriate of responses. Yeah, just remember this for a little later, it'll be a little more important as we go through this book. Meanwhile, Haruto was fighting Liko, who was ironically the first one to use a rider kick in this book. Inevitably though, she was caught by one of his more legit OP ring powers. Also, I don't remember that ever being an accessory for the wizard driver. But yeah, needless to say, a rather exciting way to open the story. I mean, I think TJ just does an amazing job at drawing explosions and getting across the effects of each of the combatants' powers. That said, how did we even get here, and who is this ominous figure just watching them? Well, for those answers, we traveled back to earlier that day. Liko had taken Mirai to the Chinatown part of the magical world, because I guess every place needs a Chinatown. Hell, I think there's even one in Beijing. Anyway, this place had everything, including Redman? Yeah, Redman, the mimetic kaiju serial killer from Tsuburaya, was just kind of here in a book featuring characters from Toei for no real reason. Well, actually, on the last page of the book, there's a little challenge from TJ to try and find him as though he were Waldo, which is ridiculously easy when he appears right next to Mofuru's speech bubble here, where she even says, "What's that?" And yeah, she wasn't talking about him specifically unless she was concerned he'd see her as a kaiju, and well.
Seriously, if you ever need a quick laugh, just look up any of his short episodes that are available right here on YouTube.
Anyway, they scoped around and saw stuff like some panda that could turn into an old man if you poured hot water on him. I wonder if that's a reference to something. Oh, and there were also some ramen and gyoza out on a date, but hey, why don't we look at that panda again? Okay, but seriously, they were establishing that Chinese foods were actually living creatures in this world, which might make Ron feel just a little sick. Granted, that didn't stop these girls from wanting to eat the stuff, especially Mofurud and her really expensive tastes. Seriously, I've never had Swallow's Nest soup, but it seems like one of the most needlessly expensive delicacies ever. Still, I will give this bear credit for understanding the true value of mooching. In the end though, Liko compromised by agreeing to buy some meat buns for them, which honestly I think is a much better deal than a soup made from bird saliva. However, during all of this, you might have noticed a plate of fried rice that had been following them since the last page, as even Liko pointed out, because everyone in a TJ book just doesn't give a crap about the fourth wall. But yeah, on top of this being a plate of gomoku, or 5 vegetable fried rice because they have to be all fancy, Mirai had apparently rescued it from a bear trap with the intention of eating it later, and yeah, I really like Mofurun's reaction here. Still, the rice was grateful to Mirai, and it clearly developed a little bit of an attachment to her. Liko found this odd due to the species normally being very docile until Mirai revealed a shocking revelation. It had green peas on top of it! And no, it wasn't because this girl didn't have any good taste, because green peas are one of the absolute best toppings on fried rice, but rather for wild and living fried rice. It was the equivalent of a wedding ring, which finally made Mirai realize why hearts kept appearing around the plate of carbs. Now, of course, the obvious solution would have been to just turn it down, because I don't even know how you would make a lot of things work. But through Liko's JoJo monologue, they realized that wasn't an option, as if it ever got out that she had dumped what is considered to be an innocent animal in this world, then their reputations as Precure would be ruined. Again, just ignore how many different food products y'all have pushed over the years. Regardless, Mirai would have no choice but to marry the rice, and okay, I know this is supposed to be a future Mirai, but doesn't she also kind of look like Nozomi?
I mean, she's already into furry, so why wouldn't she be into...
Though before she could tie the knot, they themselves got tied up. And before anyone could make a tentacle hentai joke, the book did for me. However, Liko clarified that this is totally an all-ages book, so get off my case, and instead it was some ramen. And it had been created by the villain of this book, a creature that called himself a golem, but yeah, as our heroines quickly pointed out, he looked more like a moai. He tried to clarify his backstory in one panel that, yeah, I'm not even gonna bother to try and translate all of that, other than to say that apparently Sabak was somehow involved in his creation, but hell, if Mofurun doesn't care, then why should we? But yeah, she was more distracted by the fact that the magical Chinatown had turned into a normal Chinatown, complete with Fukushima, which is a popular Chinese restaurant chain in Japan. All the brooms had been replaced with bikes, and all the films had been replaced with Jackie Chan movies, including Jackie Chan All-Stars Deluxe.
So, does each Rush Hour film get a Jackie? And would Shang from Mulan also count, since he did play the Cantonese dub of that character, and also sang a song? Yeah, there's a fun little bit of trivia for today.
As well as Godzilla vs. Jackie, which, yeah, unless we're talking about the animated version, I don't think he'd stand a chance. But yeah, this is all because the Moai was draining the magic out of this world with his ramen, to the point that the very concept of magic was being erased from everyone's minds. This disturbed Liko, though not so much because her precious magic was being taken away, but rather because she thought that without magic, kids would start to take up Tai Chi and then martial arts, and then that would lead to an uptick of violence amongst the youth.
Okay, so I don't think this is a case of them stereotyping Chinese martial arts leading into juveniles, but more likely TJ just poking fun at the parents, or more likely the Karens, who were often complaining about the violence in Precure.
I mean, really, this is probably just the mindset of those who are coming to the conclusion that somehow Pretty-Cure of all things would lead to kids rebelling against their parents, as opposed to some of their outdated and overly strict education and societal expectations. Hell, it's rather appropriate this is coming from the Maho girls, who were the first noticeable victims of them scaling back the fights after Gold Princess bombed in the sales.
And again, that has kind of led into our current situation with Wonderful, but at this point, I'm just ranting, so let's just move back into the review before I get a migraine.
Whatever commentary they were trying to get across, the Moai's goal was to drain all of the magic from this world and become all-powerful. This, of course, included taking it directly from the residents of the magical world, which resulted in Liko turning into a swallow's nest. Mofrun tried to revive her with some hot water, because does this look like the face of mercy to you? Which, yeah, didn't seem to directly help Liko, but it was effective as the ramen got pissed off when some of the water got in their soup and was ruining the flavor. It tossed them into the air, allowing our heroines to transform. And this was when the Moai brought in Haruto and Kai, having apparently already visited their worlds and captured them to be as slaves. This was the reason behind their weird little accessories that weren't turning them evil or anything, but rather made the Precure look like the villains of their respective shows in their eyes. And speaking of other shows, the Moai revealed that he was going to literally consume all the magic in the form of a ramen he was creating. Because yeah, may as well also throw in a Kaminari Kabuto reference while you're at it.
Please enjoy your meal.
Yeah, I will never stop using that clip because we make good ramen in this state, damn it!
But yeah, against the two heroes who were likely picked up around the end of their respective series, while the Maho girls didn't even seem to have a certain fairy god by their side, things weren't looking good until the fried rice decided to intervene and just knock off the Moai's accessories.
Oh, too easy.
Yeah, that might have seemed a little too easy, but as someone who has had to deal with the QC issues on these toys, well, I can't say they're being inaccurate.
Anyway, Haruto and Kai were freed, and thanked the pure and sweet little plate of rice who could do no wrong and would live a long and happy life.
Truly, the saddest death since Eric dying for the millionth time.
Still, whenever a Precure villain gloats about their evil deeds, they tend to catch a few hands. Then, of course, like any good crossover, when the heroes stop fighting each other, they have to work together. Kai especially wanted to fight on behalf of his brother, who would be pissed off at anyone who wastes perfectly good food, who I'm going to assume he's talking about the best green ever.
Why, yes, I do think Bakito is better than Burai, unless you could tell me about a brother who overcomes COVID just to cheer his siblings on.
But yeah, after a legit really cool roll call, the Moai tried to brag about how he had taken all of the magic, and thus the heroes had no way of fighting back, forgetting the cures still had their fists.
Yeah, I'm sorry, brother, but you were born in the wrong era.
Then again, I guess he was wrong about all the magic being gone, as these four heroes were clearly using it to beat the crap out of him. Of course, he tried to argue against this, but nah, just like throwing that food stall in the beginning, this was clearly pure magic. I mean, if anything, the MAAAGIICCCC opening theme is nothing short of magic on the ears as it played while Kai fought. And after the cures delivered, I think the Inazuma double kick, Kai and Haruto lent them some rings, which in the case of the latter did make total sense as that was his gimmick, but I don't remember MAAAGIICCCC ever having any sort of rings other than the oath rings. I guess Haruto could have transmuted one to represent the Maji Rangers, though I also think there's a bit of a missed opportunity here to not have the wizard ring to be put in Mofaroon.
Like, fun fact about these little guys, you can actually remove the braces on them, and, well, yeah, basically becomes a Linkle Stone.
Hell, the one Haruto threw was his primary transformation ring called the Flame Wizard Ring, and like most Jewel-themed series, it was clearly a ruby, much like a pair of magical girls I know who also use a very similar form change. He also has water and land rings, and his super form is accessed through a diamond, but yeah, pity that TJ couldn't implement at least the ruby style into this book, and maybe even have them look like wizard. But whatever, the girls put on the rings and access the ultimate magic of JoJo, and no, I didn't put that aura in because I'm a bit of a JoJo fan myself, as in the very next page...
Anyone else miss the days when this franchise could be compared with one of the most badass shonen manga ever?
Now, of course, the boy tried to call a timeout to again nitpick that he didn't view any of this clearly magical abilities as actual magic, but everyone, especially Mirai, assured him that all of these brutal beatdowns were pure magic. In the aftermath, the heroes discovered the true identity of the Moai as an amalgamation of merchandise that barely appeared in their respective shows and thus sold very poorly. This included the charm pen case from Splash Star, the Zektomizer from Kamen Rider Kabuto, which I guess would explain the lawman reference, and most notably the Buron booster from Kamen Rider Kiva, which as they pointed out was only used twice between the TV show and the movie. That was likely due to the show's head writer, Toshiki Inoue, being notoriously salty over the fact that he has to write for glorified toy commercials. Thus, if the manufacturers come to him with a new toy, he'll just throw it in with no real build-up, and then just keep writing his daytime soap operas into the kid shows.
So really, the true villain of this story all along was Toshiki Inoue. That almost makes too much sense.
Thus, our heroes decide to end the story by giving him a little RIP, as he reminded them that he called himself a golem. Alright, what have I been calling him this whole time? Oh, and the fried rice was brought back to life by refilling its plate with frozen fried rice. So, like, is the plate the actual living creature, or did Mofaroon just create new life with a microwave, and I probably should just stop asking questions.
Regardless, this was a really damn fun book.
Out of all of TJ Type 1's books we've covered so far, this one easily leaned the most into comedy, which is perfectly fine with me, as their writing tends to have just the right amount of self-awareness that it doesn't become overbearing. It helps that it went hand in hand with some of the most over-the-top action we've seen from them so far.
If I had to complain about anything, I guess I could say that there were a few missed opportunities for some good crossover stuff, but really, who cares when the magic is already there?
Right off the bat, I'll say I think this is some of TJ's best looking art so far. I mean, it's usually great, but even more so than I think even Show Rider versus Heisei Precure, this just felt like it had even more energy to it. It's probably because they just went ham with some of the magical sequences, making not just all the JoJo references, but even Die Buster of all things. Speaking of references, I think we should all just appreciate how the villain of the story was one of the deepest of deep cuts into Toei. Honestly, it just ended up adding to some of the great comedy here. And as a result, yeah, it really didn't matter how freaking random it got at times, including letting a plate of fried rice save the day. That said, I do kind of wish that they had included at least a few more references to really take advantage of the crossover elements of this book. I mean, chronologically speaking, this should be taking place after Mirai got her school uniform, and before they met Hachan, which would be between episodes 3 and 4 respectively. 3 would have also been when they got the Ruby Linkle Stone, which as we said, kind of nicely ties in with Wizard's base form. Hell, again, his super form is accessed with a diamond ring, so he could have also thrown that, and we could have gotten like a souped up up version of the Maho girl's base form. It's not too big a deal, as Mirai and Liko going crazy on the Moai was more than adequate, just a couple of missed opportunities is all I'm saying. Regardless, this book was still just a blast with a lot of legit well done action sequences and a ton of laughs. We still got a few more of TJ's books to cover in the near future, but for now, let's just look forward to MAAAGIICCCC 2, and maybe some truly mind-blowing magic, though not quite as much as this.
Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out our next video where we'll be discussing our review schedule for the next season.
It's just gonna be a brief video about the shows that we're excited for and we'll plan to cover for the summer season, which is shaping up to be unique to say the least.
So look forward to it. Until then though, farewell for now my friends, and oh no, Redman found another kaiju to fight. Hey dude, who do you think is gonna have to clean this up afterwards?